Hi, this is Garibay, and today we're going to talk about what constitutes a World Strand to Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms. Okay, so Forgotten Realms is the default standard world of Dungeons & Dragons. It has been the default in literally every era of Dungeons & Dragons. It was, Forgotten Realms was there in the Gygaxian era. It was there in the Lorrainian era. It was there in the Dancian era. It was there in the Heinsoonian era, and it's very prevalent now, even in the current Perkinian era. Okay, all right. So, what constitutes a strand from the Dungeons & Dragons world, Forgotten Realms, to another world? Okay, and I'm going to give you another example of what constitutes a world strand. A completed project. Okay. Now I'll give you an example of this. I just purchased the D&D Yahtzee set. That is a completed project. You're like, isn't that a product? Yes, it is a project. It is a product, but we're not there yet. It's literally we're just going to talk about it from the perspective of a project. So it is a project, and it is completed, right? So when I say a project, I already talked about an announced project, right? But a project that was announced and then was completed, right? So a completed project does world stranding to Dungeons & Dragons, in my humble opinion. Let's talk about it, all right? Let me give you an example. The Dungeons & Dragons Yahtzee project, okay, which resulted in a Yahtzee product, which I recently bought for $25. It includes a D&D dice tower, and that dice tower has the big red fat dragon ampersand on it, and it functions as a dice tower. But it also has 5 dice that have beholders, owlbears, skeletons, and literally has 6 different Dungeons & Dragons monsters on each of the dice. Okay, now, all right, that project, in my opinion, represents Dungeons & Dragons, and specifically represents the primary default Dungeons & Dragons world and more of the worlds. Any of the canon, I think it represents any of the canon worlds, in my humble opinion. First and foremost, Forgotten Realms, right? Okay, so we have that there, right? What's next? So what's next is so now that we have Forgotten Realms in Yahtzee, right, which is a congruent theme, Yahtzee is an activity that you can participate in, right, and it has applied multiple licensed themes to Yahtzee. The company that owns Yahtzee, I think it's Mattel, I'm not sure, right? And owns Yahtzee, has other worlds under Yahtzee. So let's just take one, okay? And that is going to be Firefly, okay? So there is a Firefly Yahtzee set. So you right now can purchase, so let's say you own the D&D Essentials kit, okay? Right now, all you can run is D&D, is D&D, right? But the moment that Dungeons & Dragons was made into an official Yahtzee set, in my humble opinion, there was a world strand that was built. So you could purchase the D&D Yahtzee set. Then you could purchase the Firefly Yahtzee set. The dice are both 5 dice, and they both have a container. The container for Firefly is literally the Firefly ship, and the dice go in the ship. That's the container, okay? The container for the D&D dice is the dice tower, right? You can put those 2 dice holders on your Dungeons & Dragons table, and with the D&D Essentials kit, right, you can run a game where Elminster meets Malcolm Reynolds, right? Like, and meets Wash, right? And not only can you run that D&D story with those two products, right? There is a permissioning, in my humble opinion, that has happened from the Yahtzee side saying, yes, We want you to think of these worlds as connected, right? That's why we built the products, so that they're cohesive and that they're integrally the same, and that the D&D dice can literally go in the Firefly ship, and the dice from the Firefly dice can go into and can be rolled in the D&D dice tower, right? And then how do we connect all this, right? Well, in Dungeons and Dragons, it says the rules aren't in charge. You are, right? So you simply, as a dungeon master, glom these complete. So the permissioning and the strand has already been established by the company that owns Yahtzee and the company that owns D&D, in my humble opinion. And you, as the dungeon master, are simply putting a little, just putting some glue on other parts, right? And making the connection complete, right? And telling a story that contains Wash and Elminster using the D&D Essentials Kit. So what constitutes a World Strand from X-World, Firefly, to Dungeons and Dragons? A project, which has resulted in a project, simply a project, a completed project, right? And that's a perfect example. In my humble opinion, completing a project that puts a D&D product into the same sphere as your other existing world products for another company creates a strand to Dungeons and Dragons world. And over that strand, you are inviting every single dungeon master to tell stories in the world that you connected with a strand to Dungeons and Dragons, because that's what Dungeons and Dragons does. All that is my humble opinion. I am very eager to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.